Chris Mannix for the crossover alongside Michael Shapiro and Howard Beck. Guys, the Lakers were clobbered by the crosstown rival Clippers on Sunday, what amounted to just an intercity scrimmage. LA now has 5 games on the road and no real gimmies in the month of April. Michael, how bad could this get for the Lakers? And ultimately, does it really matter as long as Anthony Davis and LeBron James come back healthy?
This is a situation where with a healthy LeBron James and a healthy Anthony Davis, yeah, I'm probably going to pick the Lakers to reach the finals. But I do think that the seeding matters. To kind of act like these months without James and Davis is immaterial, I think is kind of foolish, especially when the Lakers, yeah, they could fall into the play-in tournament, or if they're the 6th seed, they could face a really tough road. Last year they bypassed the Clippers. They played a Heat team that wasn't necessarily the best of Eastern Conference representatives for the finals. Here, it's a situation where if they have to play Utah, then Denver, then the Clippers, or any of those 3 teams in that order, are we so sure they're going to survive that gauntlet? I think that if James and Davis are healthy, yeah, this is still the favorite, but are they infallible? I would say that's no guarantee whatsoever.
Look, my default position on these discussions every year when a favorite or a defending champion slips a little is I'm not worried. As long as they've got LeBron James and Anthony Davis and they're healthy, I don't care if the Lakers are the 6th seed, 7th seed, 8th seed. I don't care which matchups they have. I don't care if they have home court or not. They don't need it. They're the defending champs. They've got 2 of the best players in the NBA, and they're a seasoned group. They don't need home court. They don't need favorable seedings. All that said, they have been pretty shaky, and this is the year of the play-in tournament. If you are 7th or 8th, you got to play the other 7th or 8th team, and beat them. And if you don't, you're now playing the winner of 9 versus 10. 2 games, okay, double elimination, Lakers should win. Sure, fine. But what happens if LeBron twists his ankle in the first quarter of a play-in game? What happens if somebody gets into foul trouble? What if there's just a weird call or a bad night? You don't want to introduce that kind of volatility and risk. Not if you're the Lakers or if you're anybody. So if they finish 6th or 7th, I'm not as concerned. 9th or 10th and 1 loss can knock you out, then I'd be very concerned. So, yeah, it's somewhere in between. It's not catastrophic that they're slipping in the standings, but it ain't great.
Yeah, I think you guys are overthinking it. I don't think there's any issue whatsoever with what's going on with the Lakers right now. Even if they lose 10 straight games and wind up as the 10th seed, I would still make them the favorite to win the championship. And I understand what you're saying, Howard, that one game, a lot of crazy things that can happen, but if LeBron and AD are healthy for that one game, I'm picking them against Sacramento or Memphis or whoever it is they play to get into that one of the last 2 playoff spots. This is a team that when they're healthy, they're just better than everybody else in the Western Conference. And I don't think, Michael, that you can underestimate the impact that Andre Drummond is going to have on this team. You saw in spurts in his debut that he can be a difference-making type of player, whether it's rebounding, shot blocking, passing, which surprised me a little bit with how he played in that first game, and just being an overall presence in the way that Marc Gasol and Montrezl Harrell cannot be. So as long as these guys are back late April, early May, it is meaningless where they finish in the standings. It is meaningless who they play in the first round. Remember last year, Michael, they were in the bubble, and they played the big, bad Portland Trailblazers in the first round. Everyone was saying that was the team that could give the Lakers problems because the Blazers were not your typical 8th seed. 5 games. That's how long it took the Lakers to knock off the Blazers. I am not worried at all about what's happening in Los Angeles right now.
You look back to last year and you look to the bubble, I think the kind of situation with the Blazers was a little overhyped, but I do very distinctly remember a lot of people saying, oh, the Houston Rockets might go out and give the Lakers trouble. That didn't really happen at all whatsoever, and they ran through the bubble. But do you guys think you're actually underestimating the quality of competition in the West this year? This is a much better Denver team. This is the best Utah team in recent memory. And when you look at the Clippers, I know they collapsed last year, but they still have a strong roster. I think Rajon Rondo might actually make a difference when they desperately needed a late game initiator. And we have seen Kawhi Leonard, go out there and be the best player in basketball in playoff series. I don't necessarily think if they have some gauntlet, the Lakers are necessarily going to roll. Are they the favorites? Yeah, probably. But if they have to play a couple series and then face the Clippers, I want to pencil them in. I want to write that in stone.
Well,
yeah,
and I will say this.
That? Let me get you in there. What do you think about that? Because, Michael, to be honest, I know the Clippers collapsed last year, but is other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? They collapsed last year and collapse all the time. So until they stop doing it, I'm not going to count on them as being a true threat to the Lakers. But Howard, do you agree with Mike's point that the Western Conference this year is better than what it was last year?
Well, it is better because the Clippers are better than they were a year ago, and the Nuggets, having added Aaron Gordon and another year of experience, they're better than they were. The Jazz and Suns are clearly better than they were a year ago, and I'm not saying that those are the teams that would necessarily knock them out, but let's also remember, the Clippers have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, two guys who, as elite perimeter defenders, can at least plausibly try to get in LeBron's way. And the Clippers and Lakers never really met last year. Just because the Clippers gagged against the Nuggets doesn't mean that they might not have presented a different kind of challenge to the Lakers than the Lakers had to face. So I'm not going to dismiss the competition. The competition is clearly high quality, but the Lakers are also better, right? They had that great offseason, adding a bunch of players, upgrading the roster, and now having added Andre Drummond. So that leads me to my final pseudo concern, though, which is this. Once Anthony Davis and LeBron are back and healthy, they're going to need time still to get back in sync with themselves, with each other, and incorporating Andre Drummond, a piece who just got there and is presumably going to play significant minutes. And Anthony Davis and LeBron James have never played with him. So there's also going to be a small window for the Lakers to get to their peak again. I'm not saying that they can't, but if we're going to raise reasons why they might stumble, put that on there.
And you guys are showing a lot of faith in the Clippers. I like Serge Ibaka. I like Rajon Rondo, or the Nuggets, but the Clippers specifically. I mean, history can be our guide in this one. And that them collapsing last year, they still don't have great leadership on that team. And I worry about when they get smacked in the mouth at some point in the playoffs, whether it's first round, second round, conference finals, that the same thing could ultimately happen again. For more, check us out over at SI.com.